Regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for January 27th to order. This meeting is also being held via Zoom. Dial in at 719-359-4580. Webinar ID 863-8055-0264. Start with the roll call.
Commissioner Connerton. Commissioner Cowan.
Here.
Commissioner Sipperly. Here. Commissioner Waller.
Here.
Commissioner White. Here. Commissioner Houghton.
Here.
Commissioner Guyman. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, any comments from citizens appearing for items not on the agenda? Okay, I don't see anyone online. Okay, we'll move to the new items. Item 1 is variance 000098-2025 Iron Mountain Hot Springs. There's 2 variances. One allow 4 poles from 1 pole, and 2, the height of signage allowed 20 feet to extend to 36 to 44 feet. And as we started off, I don't know if anyone has any, does anyone need to recuse themselves on our group? Okay. Seeing that, then let's go on, and Jim, I guess, get us going.
Good evening, commissioners. Guests, welcome. This evening you have a variance application in front of you. It is 2 variances, as you mentioned. The applicant is the Iron Mountain Hot Springs, located, as you're all aware, in this particular area along the Colorado River between that and 6 and 24, considered northwest of the downtown center. The purpose this evening is to entertain and listen to their variances for a sign on their property. And your purpose this evening, you have the ability to approve with conditions, or deny, or you can hold the hearing over, waiting for more specific information to help you make a decision. This variance also, it's worth noting every time we do this, it's intended to provide relief from the requirements of the code, where strict application of the code would result in an exceptional practical difficulty or undue hardship, preventing use of the land as otherwise intended by the code. And it is not to alleviate inconveniences or financial burdens imposed on landowners. The 2 variances in front of you, we have them divided as action 1 and 2. Action 1, the variance is for an allowance to exceed a height maximum of 20 feet, which is set in the RE Resort District. They're requesting the allowance to go to 47 feet and 2 inches. Variance action 2 is for the allowance for a pole sign, excuse me, to use 4 poles instead of just the 1, as they are intending to erect a historically significant, I guess, visually significant water tower for the hot springs. As I mentioned, I've got these divided into 2 actions, as we typically do. But I guess I could mention it later on, but the variance request came in as multiple arguments within 1 set. So I haven't broken them out into 2. You can use the findings information, the criteria analysis for both of them, though. A little bit of background here. In 2014, when the Iron Mountain Hot Springs was first approved as a development plan, the idea for an observation tower was part of the plan. A variance was approved for the height that you're close to the height that you're looking at tonight. The signage, a similar size, locations are different, but that isn't what you're looking at tonight. That will be part of the building permit process. The observation tower aspect is off the table now. And the idea that this approval in 2014 is active today is not the case. It expired within 3 years of approval, as no building permit or sign permit was applied for. These are just for reference for later conversation. The three-dimensional sign area is a way for us to evaluate signs and to assign a square footage to something that otherwise is difficult to work with. For example, this restaurant where you have a caped crusader is standing in such a way where you can see that image. We use a maximum of 8 sided polygons to measure this out. So you could see in this case where you might have one rectangle here and another set of rectangles that can easily be used to determine the square footage. That's how we have seen that in the past. So if obviously as you're going down the road, you see the sign, but then you see it from a different angle, if it is thinner than it is wider in another aspect, then you wouldn't anticipate using that for your area examination. And I would imagine that the applicant does have this on their presentation, but simply put, and I won't go into great detail here, but this area up here is considered the sign face, which is similar to what we've done here, as they're wanting to put the sign itself with backlit letters installed on a round barrel at the top. This is an east-west elevation. Obviously, if this is symmetrical any way you look at it, it would be the same, but that's how we were applying it. I won't go over any of this other than to say, because it is in your staff report, in your packet, that they only meet 2 of the 7 criteria. One of those is finding that it does have an exceptional shape and topography and building configuration. The other is that we don't anticipate it harming the public not violating the building or fire code requirements, and by default, not hurting the public. Reviewing agencies, as part of the original approval in 2014, CDOT was put into the development agreement as a reviewing entity for any sign permit that did come before us in the future. I did review that past the state, and they don't have any problems with this. It's not in conflict with the Highway Beautification Act of 1965. It is not close enough. They are talking about things that are right on the right of way. No public comment was received for this particular case. And with my contact with the applicant, have found that they've met all of the requirements of public noticing. With that in mind, the 2 action items in front of you this evening, 1 and 2, both are being recommended by staff for denial. And I have included also, as seen in your staff report, an alternative motion to approve, should you decide to. But all of those items would need to be in conformance with your motion. And with that, any questions?
Okay, thanks, Jim. Any questions from the commission? Ms. White. Oh, okay. Commissioner Cowan.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Jim. I guess just going back and seeing what has changed from that previous approval in 14 to now. When you look at the two, what has changed, I guess, from a analytical standpoint, from what you guys looked at?
The proposal and approval for
Correct.
the first variance versus this one.
Yeah.
From what I can tell, well, location, but that's not part of it here. You're looking at just the observation use aspect of it. They're not intending it for it to be accessed by the public at all.
Okay. So just the type of use or that ancillary use is
Right.
the only thing that's different? Okay. I guess I don't have that. We don't have that previous variance in front of us or that approval, kind of those findings in that, but
Well, to be clear, and I believe I mentioned it in the staff report, if I didn't, that's my error and I apologize. There was a recommendation of denial from staff at the time for the exact same thing that you're looking at. So the planning commission chose to put aside the recommendation for denial and they approved it.
okay, I just, maybe I missed that where that was spelled out in here about kind of what the conditions for approval were by the previous commission. I'm not sure, but
Well, the intention wasn't to put those in there so we could compare and change and charge what it is that we have in front of us tonight. I think the idea of looking at our staff report and recommendation, because so much time has changed, the code has changed, that we look at it on the merits that we have in front of us now.
okay, great. So I guess just going back, so we have seen some code change in that intervening time specific to perhaps what the previous commission was looking at and their approval of that variance. And now what do you think or I guess looking at the staff report and the recommendation for denial then versus what you're bringing here?
I'm not too sure what would have changed in the code that would allow a different decision now. In looking over the minutes for the meeting, there wasn't a whole lot of information that was gleaned from those minutes.
Okay. Great. That's it for now. Thanks.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, Jim is right. You know, we kind of include that information for the historical context of how we got to where we are today. But, you know, this is a new application and you should be looking at this completely separate of any previous approvals related to the former sign. I would say one thing that maybe has changed since that former approval, there was a conversation previously as to, you know, could this be considered attached building signage? And, you know, that was a structure formerly that would allow for the public to go up the stairs and to utilize that viewing tower. I think, again, staff still recommended denial at that time, but we had a lot of difficulty in trying to get to, well, what do we call this sign? What portion of this sign are we measuring in terms of sign area? But it was clear that based on the definitions in the code that are outlined in the staff report, that this is not an occupiable structure. So we cannot consider what you really look at as the advertising piece or portion of this sign as allowed attached signage, because this is not a structure that can be occupied by the public.
Okay. Commissioner White.
And so, to be clear, now it's just going to be what looks like a big holding tank, but it's just a sign. It's a non-functional
Correct.
structure.
Right, individual letter signs is the plan that I've seen, backlit, so nothing illuminating through the letters unless something's changed. Yeah.
Do we have anything like that in Glenwood that you can think of?
Not that I'm aware of. You know, I mean, that's kind of the difficulty again that we have with this, is that it's a cool idea. It's a cool sign, right? It's a cool kind of feature. But it's not something that's anticipated in our code, which is why the variance request was necessary.
Thank you.
Commissioner Guyman.
The 28-foot maximum was in the which zone was it?
The RE resort zone.
The RE, is there a maximum in any of the other zones, or is it 28 feet for every zone?
Most of the zones that you'll see that are visited by either higher speeds or more automobiles have 20 foot. The M1 district, for example, that's the one that sees the most frontage.
So 20 is the maximum for all the zones, really?
Is it the maximum for all the zones? Without looking at the table, I wouldn't be able to confirm that. There are some places where it can go higher. But I think the idea is that where you have higher speeds and more traffic, a lower sign is the choice, so you're not distracting drivers.
Okay. And then, why is it only allow one pole?
That's just the definition of what a pole sign was originally created as.
Okay.
And keeping in mind that whatever is suspended up above, if it can be placed upon one pole, does minimize the number of items that are in people's line of sight too.
And did you have a picture of where exactly this was gonna go?
Not a part of tonight's proceedings, but are you familiar?
Yeah.
With it, or if you,
do when I get up.
Yeah. I'll just let him show you.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
You good?
And just to clarify, I just took a look at this, Jim. It's 16 feet in some districts in terms of the maximum height of a freestanding pole sign, 20 feet in the adjacent highway districts like 6 and 82, like this site is. And then, of course, you have smaller heights for like your monument signs. Those are max of 6 feet in height. But those, are generally at the ground level.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, I have one. So if we would approve this, we need to change up, we would have to decide all the no's or yeses, right?
Correct.
So could you go through the no's? Go through that part of the presentation so we know specifically what those are and.
There's
I mean,
5 notes, correct?
Yeah, there's 5 no's, but I would just like to, hear what they are versus brushing over. Yeah, there's 5 no's. I just like to go through and,
There's 5 no's because of the hardship. Like if we.
I'm asking him to just do that.
Yeah, I could go through them, but specifically within the staff report, it notes that several of these can't be, at least in our estimation, applied as a positive or a yes in conformance to this criteria because a hardship had not been established. One of them is a strict application to the code standards where a variance is sought, which would produce undue hardship, period. Number 2, that one kind of drives a couple of others. Number 3, the applicant did not create the hardship by his or her own actions. Number 4, the variance requested does not harm the public and does not impair the intent or purposes of this code, goals, and policies, including the specific regulations for which the variance is sought. Number 5, the variance request demonstrates exceptional hardship not related to purposes of convenience or financial burden. And number 7, the variance is the minimum variance that will afford relief to the subject standards of the code. And you can see my language in the staff report to the right there with the finding that shows how it doesn't comply. So you'd have to.
Yeah,
work with
yeah,
those.
and I read through all of that and I mean, hardship, some of it is subjective though, right? I mean, I guess that's all that I'm just kind of tossing out here as we go through. I mean, you're just reading the specific approval criteria without, I mean, if we would have to go through and change it, we would need to have conversation on those items, as I know we've done in the past on certain ones to say we have a different opinion of the hardship of what hardship is, and hardship is something that then applies to multiple ones, but
And
anyway,
I
mean, that
think-
was the reason I was asking it, other than to just read specifically that.
And I think Jim, as part of his presentation in anticipation of that, potentially does have some findings that would help you go the opposite direction of what staff recommended if you so choose.
Okay.
Now I haven't come up with anything that justifies this alternative motion to approval. This is just how they would be read. You would have to come up with
Right.
your own findings.
Right. Do you have some other stuff you're going to go through on that, or should I move forward?
I am,
Okay. Commissioner Cowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just a quick one. I'm just asking this here as a kind of a placeholder. But it came across attention in the report, Jim, about how do we define this thing? And same, Trent, when you're kind of going back and forth between structure or building, is this something perhaps not now, but in the future, we just kind of earmark that we need to perhaps look at these definitions a little bit. Do you see some utility in that exercise, Trent?
I guess I don't necessarily really have an opinion based on this specific sign. If that was of interest to this body, we'd be happy to bring that forward.
Are you saying revisit the code?
Yeah, I'm just posing some questions here about, just reading this, kind of the tension around some of the definitions. If there's opportunity for us to, at a later date, perhaps, or, when it's appropriate, to take a look at that.
if I could jump in real quick, I don't want to speak for the director, but we had a healthy conversation with those terms, and that's why we brought them in. Not because they're suspect, but because by looking at them more closely, we were able to, with confidence, direct the applicant to a variance for a pole sign versus a building
Mhm.
where you would have a sign, because it doesn't meet the parameters for what's allowed for a sign up, an attached sign.
Okay, so you believe that the additions here, these additional definitions are perhaps appropriate handrails to help you get to a more kind of narrowed place?
I believe so. And Trent, if you disagree, let me, please speak up. But I felt like I said, our conversation got us to a point where we understood our own code a little bit better, because we don't always have a whole number of examples or exceptions that we can just roll down the list of and look at and go, yep, this one's just like that one.
Okay. And then kind of another just kind of attitudinal question about, as an applicant comes into ComDev with something like this, just looking at the strict adherence, and kind of what that, what that entails, kind of the lens that things are brought forward in. What's that look like as far as discretion for dialogue and kind of resolution finding within ComDev, within the
When it
discretion of
comes to
staff?
Discussion about a variance
Correct.
prior to an application form.
Yep.
It has a lot to do with fully understanding what it is that the applicant is looking for. And then in terms of what it is that we have to share, what we interpret, then we look at helping them understand. A number of times, people have walked away thinking, oh, no problem, I'll just apply for a variance. It's difficult because the definition of hardship in our code reads a condition by which the property in question cannot be put to reasonable use under existing regulations, subject to a showing of proof under the subsection that covers the variance. And so I think that tightens it. It makes it a lot more difficult. And sure, some people might say it's ambiguous, but the idea that something isn't allowed in the first place by a code section dictates that it was either put in place by not a quorum, but a consensus of a group in the process that brought that previous code up to date in 2018. There was somebody, a group, somebody brought it forward and said, this is important, let's look at this. And if it wasn't important, it would have been tossed out potentially. But for somebody to apply for a variance, meeting that hardship really doesn't address a lot of the things that they ultimately think is not under their control. And, when you purchase something, sure, you didn't create it, but that hardship can be compounded or exacerbated by things that they do.
Great. Thank you.
Commissioner White.
And Jim, oh, sorry. Jim, can you just refresh our memories? How many of these variance conditions do we need to actually meet to approve the variance?
Also,
All 7. And when was that procedure put into place? And what was the intent of that?
About 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's been in, some version of this has been in the code as long as I've worked here.
Okay,
And a version of this, those same 5 to 7 criteria are in every variance criteria in every jurisdiction that I've ever worked in.
right.
So,
And the intent is that we just don't ambiguously come in here and approve things. It's like
it is, it's designed to, variances by the very nature are things that are outside of the normal parameters of the code that a community has decided what is important. And so the criteria is really designed around really getting to the heart of the matter, and oftentimes it turns on undue hardship, whether or not this is a situation that really warrants a change from the code or not.
Yeah.
And so the undue hardship, and did you do it to yourself when you bought the property because you knew what the property was and what the rules were, is most often the hardest one to meet.
And then the other question I have for you, Jim, is were any sort of, and maybe this is a better question for the applicant, but were any sort of alternatives presented that do meet the code? Or is this kind of the only concept that's being presented?
the applicant has chosen to work with the previous approval and is wishing to move forward with it. So nothing else was presented, but the applicant and I had a couple of different discussions about what else would be possible, what could fit, what would still meet the intent of what the applicant ultimately wants. But nothing was proposed. A number of ideas were floated.
Thank you.
Okay, one other question I have is, I don't know if this is piggybacking on Commissioner Cowan's question, but if when I look at the definitions, pole sign versus building, and I understand, I read through how you said this is a pole sign versus a building when I look at the definitions and that sort of thing, but it's kind of like a faux building kind of thing. I mean, it very much looks like a building
Right.
component.
The one thing
And I
that really-
know, but by
Sorry.
the strict rules, it's not. And I guess, I don't know if this is back in 14, and I agree 14 does not matter. But if it was a building, then would that change some of the, the heights? Because I know buildings downtown, we've got signs way that wicked high and all that kind of stuff, but I'm just kind of tossing that out there.
Sure, it would meet the expectation of a building if there were a parking area or a street that the building fronted on where the entrance existed.
So, so what I'm asking is, if it was a building, and let's just say it was a building, then does that, it still needs to have, so I'm not saying what things are criteria for it to be a building, that if it is a building, does that change
You
the
bet.
variance
Yeah, you bet.
he knows and that sort of thing?
Height would still be in question, but the pole structure would not be. Because regardless of what the height for the building allowance would be in that district, the sign height is typically separate.
And I'm just thinking sign heights on buildings like the Anderson Cooper or whatever that one's called, those are pretty darn high kind of thing, but
Yeah.
but that's a build, that would, and this is what I have in my head, but that's a building sign, is that?
Well, the building, yeah, sorry, I think I misspoke. The building sign could go higher, but there would be a maximum that it could go.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just,
You're thinking.
no, but no, I'm just trying to think through, maybe that was in 14 when it was a building, that there was the stairs going up and there are people in there, and it kind of looks that way. So anyway, I'm just kind of tossing it out there if it was that.
That still
I
would
don't
have
know
been,
if that's what.
that would have been
Commissioner-
considered a structure still at the time. Not a building. Because it's not enclosed and not meant for the occupancy of anyone.
Yeah, but we don't know what they'd said back then in those days. Okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, Jim, thank you very much. Okay, now would the applicant like to speak? Have you ever been for a shortage of words?
Is this
I'm
thing?
sure there'll be good words.
Do something? Okay. 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 My name is Bruce Barth with Red House Architecture, here representing Iron Mountain, and Justin Wells and Rachel Sobke are here from Iron Mountain. I'm not going to get too far into this because you guys know where it's located. I'm assuming you know the history. You know, it's been a hot springs, you know, commercially in the past, including a signage tower, which you can see here. So the previously submitted application and approval was September 30th. It was a September 30th, 2014 P&Z meeting. That is the approved tower to the right with a giant oval stuck to it, two giant ovals stuck to it. This is straight from I'm gonna go to the meeting minutes from that. They moved to approve a variance from the sign code to construct a pole sign exceeding the maximum 28-foot height at the time. And from the requirement that pole signs have only a single support, finding that 1, the proposed sign does not provide an unfair advertising advantage over neighboring businesses by allowing a taller detached sign than allowed by code. And 2, the property does possess unique geographical constraints that warrant detached sign that is taller than allowed in the sign district due to the fact that it drops down from the interstate. And 3, the proposed signage does meet the intent of the sign code and the sign variance criteria with the condition that the sign be ratified by CDOT basically, which Jim talked about earlier. So that's the previous 2014 submittal and approved language. Just a quick project timeline. So there's the 2014 approval of the previous variance submittal. February 3rd, this past year, almost a year ago now, we submitted for a building permit because the variances existed. Well, we thought they did. In May, they got revoked basically. So I submitted everything through the portal. And in May, it came back that you can't use the variances because it's expired. In October, I resubmitted all the materials to get on your November meeting, and the Glenwood Post forgot to notice it the second time, so that didn't happen. I resubmitted all the materials in November to be on the December meeting. Unfortunately, Jim got sick, and he had requested that I send him the language of what the public notice was going to say, and I missed that deadline. So here we are, October 7th. So, or I'm sorry, I said October, but now we're back to January for this meeting. This is the proposed location of it. Can you guys see the cursor if I do that? Okay. So this is the main building, the main spa building. That's the front entrance right there. This is all the parking. This is the drop off. And then the structure is right there at the end of the parking island. The little pathway that exists gets moved over to put the structure in there. The base of the structure is 20 feet by 20 feet. Jump down here. The location, sorry, let me go back up one. The location of that is 100 feet from the edge of the eastbound I-70 lane. So that's how far away it is from I-70. The previous one, there was some indication of it was going to be way over like 5 feet off the right of way. So this is much further back, and I'll get into reasoning for that. Much to Rachel's chagrin, I'm going to show you the panoramic photo, but this is standing. This basically is standing like right here and panoramic shooting around the site. So this is the
where the island, where it goes. This is the concrete these steps that need to get moved. There's the existing main lodge and front entrance. That fence, behind that fence is the I-70 corridor. And over here to the right, way over here is the kind of mixed use with the state police and CDOT building and the housing up above. This is a quick comparison between, they are not the same thing at all in terms, this is to scale. This is basically to scale of what the difference in scale. The signs are the same height between 36 and 44 feet. Ours really only goes to 43 feet, but that was the sign band that Jim and I discussed. The total height of the proposed one is 47 feet. The total height of the previous one is 52 feet. And even that I think is marginal. I think that's to the midpoint right there. So maybe it's 54 feet, this whole thing. The signage is less. It was 224 on the previous 2014 application. It's only 195 on this one. The base dimension of this one, near as I can tell, was like 25 by 25. And then, yeah, and that's kind of the lowdown on that. This is just for reference, and you guys probably all know this. These are the closest 4 buildings to this project. You've got the hotel, which I was on planning and zoning for when it came through, which is got a variance to be 60 feet tall and has signage way up high on it. And they specifically came in and said, we got to have it bigger because I-70 is right there and everyone's going so fast and we need signage. This is that mixed use building with CDOT and the state police in it. This is the CDOT building. And then this is the Two Rivers office building. The Two Rivers office building, near as I can tell, is about 52 feet tall. The hotel's 60 feet tall. And again, I'm estimating the mixed use building's 36 feet tall, and just the building part of CDOT is 30 feet tall with these tanks out here. They're probably a little taller. If I do a quick like mock-up of the tower, and I apologize for it being kind of rudimentary, but this is looking north from the corner of the CDOT property past the mixed-use building right here. And that is, again, and I'm not cheating it. That is roughly the scale of the tower right there, or of the water tower. There's 3 of these. This is from 6 and 24, looking west across I-70 to the tower. And that's again, generally scaled to the proper size. And then this is on I-70, taking my life into my hands, looking south. And that's the tower kind of behind the fence. This is the mixed use building, and the main building for Iron Mountain is right there. This is just and I understand we're in the 6 and 20 sign corridor. These are other 6 and 20 signs, and some of them are fairly new, like Mountain Chevrolet, 2 poles, Adventure Inn, 2 poles. And then to your guys' question about what's a structure and what's not, I mean, the Glenwood Springs Mall has a roof on it, but it's not a structure, but it's got, I don't know how many different things going on. So just other examples of what's there. And then strictly I-70 signage, the Maverick sign has got to be at least 40 feet tall down there. And this is, if you look at the site plan here, the circle to the oval is where the Maverick sign is down here. And then Iron Mountain is right here. It's the only really similar piece of property. Like the river's on one side, I-70's on the other. It's down below, not up above, like everything on the other side of 6 and 24. And that thing definitely, you know, there's no doubt that sign right there is not 20 feet tall and has more, I think it has more than 1 pole, but I didn't look at that. So then we get to coming off I-70 at the other exit. That is an 8-pole sign, by the way, right there for the other hot springs, located, I would guess 50 feet from I-70, something like that. So just for reference, and that's the same 8-pole sign again. To get into like the variance criteria about the site, the hardship or the, exceptional, shape or configuration of it, site conditions. I would say it's less about the shape of the site and more about the location, both geographically and topographically. And it talks about zone districts too. And there's only 3 RE zone districts. It's the community center there and the nursing or the, I don't know what I'm calling that. The nursing home that's out by the Sunlight Bridge. So this site, again, and this is one of the criteria from 2014. I know I'm not supposed to mention it, but it is below I-70. So it is not above, it does not sit on that east side, up above 6 and 24 and any of that stuff. So that is an issue. The other issue with it is the use of it, for better or worse, dictates like you're going to focus the buildings on the river. So that pushes them further away from the interstate. And then the parking is all fronting the interstate. And again, this is I would say this is not a hardship. There's utilities everywhere. So that original location where Iron Mountain said they were going to put it 5 feet away from the thing way out by the interstate is not possible. There's stuff everywhere in that site and inaccessible spots. So I think, there's a definite constraint on the site to where the sign can go, and where it goes dictates how tall it needs to be able to see it based on those mock-ups. The fact that one of the criteria is not harming the public and not, impairing the intent or purposes of the code. I would disagree with that. I think the height and the scale of the tower is well within the fabric of those existing buildings. The size of those surrounding structures are some of the biggest in Glenwood. And then I think the sign pollution comment, I try not to take offense, but the sign pollution comment, I think at best is like misguided. I mean, the idea is to take the sign and integrate it into a historically kind of iconographic form, the overall aesthetic, I think, is super positive, versus, this type of thing. I mean, this type of pole sign, and maybe there does need to be some discussion of integrated signs that aren't this or that, and there's nothing in the middle. That's a whole other thing. And to say that like, well, it distracts drivers, will everything. I mean, you could say that about any sign on any highway, anywhere, the hotel has signs at like 55 feet up there. I mean, it's and then I think key to this is like the reasonable part, that word in the what is a hardship, and how do you get beyond some of this stuff for a variance? I mean, what is reasonable? Like, is it, well, sorry, you guys built everything, so tough luck, you're done. You can get your 20-foot pole sign and there's no other way around it. The sort of unique use of the site, the location, focusing on the river, along I-70 where people are going 65 miles an hour in that RE1 zone district, and the topography of the site relative to I-70, I think what we intended was that even more so than the old than the original one, which I'll get to again. Sorry, I'll jump past it. If I was up there, I'd have a hard time with this one over here, that got approved earlier, just because it looks like they just took the sign and stuck it to the side of a tower. This, I think, should be something you would want, because it's like an integrated piece, and it's more than just a sign, sort of better than the standard pole sign, I guess. And I think it adds to the, aesthetic of the city as a whole. So.
Is that Bruce? Do you have anything else to?
That's it.
That's your presentation? Okay, thank you. Okay, questions from the commission of the applicant? Okay, I have a question. So, how much lower is it below I-70?
Depends on where you are on the site, real, you know.
Well,
but-
I guess for me, the base. So
But if you're
if I
down in that
go,
parking lot, and I'm gonna guess at it, Pete, 5 or 6 feet.
so it's 5 or 6 feet
Yeah.
where the base,
And I'm
the
saying
base of that is
that's
versus.
maybe best case scenario. I mean, if you move around the site, it probably gets worse than that, but probably about where we're at. And that I'm totally guessing at that.
Okay. Commissioner Connerton.
So from the parking lot of the hot spring, like Iron Mountain, it's probably, would you guesstimate 75 feet or 50 feet from I-70
To where?
to the parking lot of Iron Mountain? Isn't that what your question was, Pete?
No,
No,
saying
no.
vertically.
I
Oh,
was vertically
It's a-
to say that it's set down.
okay,
So what's the,
I see.
It's 100 feet.
Yeah,
from-
the net.
The
Yeah, at
location.
least 100 feet.
I said.
Okay,
yeah, my question was on that.
yeah, okay. Let's see. So on these two structures, you're saying that the sign itself, the oval sign that was originally approved, is gonna be, would be the same height if we were to approve the other design that you've created.
It's a foot lower.
It's a
Yeah.
foot, 1 foot lower.
Yeah. We only went, we set a sign band of like the same 36 to 44. Yeah, so we stuck with that criteria from the original to this, but the sign is technically lower. Jim is saying the sign's 47 feet tall because he's counting the whole barrel. Because
What
that's
kind-
the way their code reads. You have to like calculate the entire area of the barrel, not just the letters.
So that's steel and then wood?
The barrel's wood, the platform's wood, the barrel's wood, the top is steel. The roof of the barrel is metal.
I can jump in. I think we're confusing two different things, the height.
Jim, could you get to the microphone?
So the height doesn't take into account the measurement of the sign at all,
Right.
just from a practical standpoint.
Is this gonna be, this is close to that new housing then? Cause looking at the parking lot, there's the housing that's kind of there. Is that where that?
So you're talking about the mixed use building?
Yeah,
It's like way over here.
okay, sorry.
You can see it right here.
I see.
Like that's, I don't know what the distance, I'm gonna guess, but it's pretty far away.
It's 210 feet.
Okay.
Specific distance, pretty far.
That was exact.
Pretty far, yeah.
And the sign is to be located.
Clearly not an engineer.
And the tower is set to be located about 50 feet from the property line. To the highway.
Zeta.
That's the right of way. Yeah. To the right of way is what Jim means with the 50, the hundreds to the actual
Yes.
lane.
Other questions for the applicant? Okay, so I have just a couple clarifying questions. So go back to the comparison ones, just not that I would need to compare, I'm not comparing, but just so I can see it. So the new one is it a wraparound sign?
Yeah, it's on two sides of it's on the north and south, right? See?
East, west, east and west.
East and west, sorry, north and south, east and west. Yeah, so it's the same thing basically on two sides of that. But yes, it
I mean,
it's on the curve of the barrel.
I mean, the other one, and not that it matters, but I'm just so I have clarity, the one to the right that we're looking at, that was a flat sign.
Yeah,
And this one goes around the water.
yes,
Okay.
it sits, yeah. it
Right,
goes-
okay,
wraps
that
on
was
the
my
barrel,
question.
yeah.
Okay, and then, so is it point right towards I-70? I mean, so this is an I-70 sign.
It's meant to be east and west, I said.
Right,
Yeah,
east and
exactly.
west and right
Yeah.
at I-70. Okay. Okay. Commissioner Guyman,
Sorry, I can't read what it says under the hot, his iron hot Mountain Hot Springs.
A World Springs Resort.
So there's no,
They're the new owner.
but there's no like wayfinding, like exit here. There's no like wayfinding on this
No.
sign.
That's it. Just that
Okay.
part there.
You good?
Yeah, I just couldn't read it.
Okay,
Which I don't know if that would need it.
Commissioner,
Supposed to.
Commissioner White.
You mentioned the hot springs had an 8-post sign.
Yeah.
I
that
would,
That one, the one I showed has 8 posts.
They're all right together.
Yeah, there's 4 and 4 on each side of that thing. And then
that
the sign
wasn't a
goes,
part of the variance that we approved though, was it? Cause I was on that.
Previously approved variants.
It was a previous approved. I don't remember.
Some of the other signs that
They
he
get put
also
in-
showed you were approved via variances as well.
I was here, but I remember. Anyways, that doesn't matter. I guess.
That was not the subject of the recent sign package update that they did. That was previous variants years and years ago.
Oh, okay. But when they did the sign updates, that was not a part of that.
Correct.
Oh, good. I'm not crazy.
Okay,
Debatably.
My wife would say I'm not crazy for that reason.
any more questions for the applicant? Let me see if I got all mine here.
I just have one more question.
Okay, Commissioner White.
I think it's worth asking. So the expiration of the previous variance didn't have anything to do with the city responding or our system, our online system, correct?
No, that would have expired. in
Could you,
2017.
Okay.
That would have expired in 2017.
Okay,
They could have asked for
That's right, 3
an
years,
additional
right?
3 year
Okay.
after that too.
okay.
But I would like to clarify that a little bit. When you approve a variance, you are approving a site-specific development plan that includes the exact design of this sign as well as the location of this sign. So the fact that they have changed the design and the location would throw that out of the picture anyways.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sipperly.
I would be curious to know how high the lower horizontal bars are under the proposed tank.
Are you talking about right here?
The next one down, like, can you walk under this? Can you
No.
climb on it?
No, it also has the steel lateral system. There's cables running through there to
Yeah.
hold, so it doesn't move in the wind.
Right, those cross.
You can't
bars.
walk through there. You wouldn't, even if it was tall enough, you would hit those, you would hit the turnbuckle and the tie
I mean,
rod.
are kids gonna wanna crawl in there and explore the thing? It's
It's
accessible, right? So, I mean, you could be walking through the parking lot and run into those horizontal members? Cause those legs aren't illuminated, right? Just the sign on top is backlit.
Yeah, I guess that's sure. I started that. I don't know what that total overall plan of site lighting is exactly.
So there's those cross cables in each of the 3 side sections.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I can speak to when we had talked to you guys.
Yeah, could you state your name too?
Yeah, I'm Rachel Saki. And when we had talked about deviating from the original design, one of the concerns that we had was that it would be an attractive nuisance. So actually, that's how we ended up with that, because we didn't want to be responsible for somebody climbing on it. To help answer your question.
But there's really nothing to prevent anyone from climbing on it.
By design, we didn't put in the stairs and some of those other things because we had debated, oh, do we want to be able to access up top? So we thought with the cabling, that would be a deterrent. And then just that it didn't have the structural members very close together, so it'd be different.
Yeah, it's a lot lighter of a structure in the proposed.
Right.
So there's no other illumination other than the letters on the top of the circular part of the sign.
Correct. I'm not sure, like you were saying, Bruce, what the parking lot lighting situation is around there. Justin, you might remember better.
Sorry, Justin.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's definitely there's lighting, there's definitely lighting here. And there's lighting in between the parking. There's-
And
there's-
could you please introduce yourself to them?
Yeah, sorry, Justin Wells with Iron Mountain Hot Springs. And what Bruce is showing, the parking lot lights here, there's strands of lights and there is, I believe, pathway locks on that intended pathway. That illuminates that, which, you know, by byproduct will illuminate those structure towers or bases.
And I have one other somewhat unrelated question. Years ago, we approved a green roof on a building at Iron Mountain Hot Springs. I was excited for that. Anyway, thank you.
Is that a question?
Well, I'm sort of wondering where it is.
Carolyn,
Where is
It's
it?
a statement. It's a statement.
It was gonna be the
Okay.
first in Glenwood.
Commissioner Guyman.
Was wondering, could you go to the slide where you had the historical looking building? And what is that?
What is this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You just made that up like,
1905. No, that's it. That's from the site.
that is from the site
Yeah.
from 1905. How big is that?
It's hard to
Where
tell.
you think?
I mean, I'd guess that's, if the building behind it is.
It's about
I'm
the-
totally guessing here. I mean,
Do you think it's about the same scale as
maybe a little smaller.
little
I'd say
small?
35, 40 feet, maybe. Something like that.
So that was the original Iron Mountain Hot Springs.
Yeah. I think this 1905 is what I understood this to be from.
I think that's interesting that there's historical aspect to replacing it.
That's kind of a thing that
Why don't you hold to you? We can.
that's one thing that Iron Mountain really kind of strives to be kind of a steward of that historic kind of feel to it. The bathhouse itself, the siding was taken from the water tower from the CMC building from years ago. I'm not a original local, so I don't know. But that's kind of the feels that we want to kind of keep back from the Wash Allen bathhouse and kind of keep that history and aesthetic as we, expand.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Bruce. Okay, any comments from the public? Is anyone from the public here online? I see no one online. Okay, so public hearing is closed. Okay, now it comes back to the commission to make a motion so we can discuss it. Commissioner Connerton.
Okay. So we'll discuss it after, but I'd like to make an alternative motion to approve. And I'm going to go through the reasons why. So on the two variances, excuse me. So on the first one, I'll start at the top. I had two exceptional site conditions exist. So just correct me if you guys want to, if I'm off course here. So the site shape, river adjacency, not to mention it is looking down from I-70. Buildings are angled in ways not typical and not common. So that's my reasoning for that. And then for number two, strict code application produces undue hardship. So due to the site's physical and regulatory constraints, strict compliance in signage that cannot reasonably function for identification and wayfinding comparable to similarly situated properties. So I'm not saying it's less effective marketing, but functional impairment caused by site conditions, because I'm looking at this strictly from a site perspective. Hardship not self-created. The hardship arises from inherent site characteristics and regulatory constraints, not from the applicant's design choices. No harm to public or code intent. The proposal advances design quality, consolidates signage, and enhances corridor character in a manner consistent with the intent of the sign regulations. as well as some of the things that the applicant mentioned, such as he could have multiple pole signs. And we can discuss this more, but I also wanted to say where this could intersect with the strategic plan as well and distinctive character. And then hardship beyond convenience or financial gain. Am I on the right track? So the hardship results from physical site constraints, kind of what I mentioned before, affecting basic site identification, not from a desire for increased exposure or profit. No building fire conflict already supported, minimum variance necessary. The requested configuration represents the minimum relief necessary to address site-specific visibility and placement constraints. And that's it. That was
Okay.
7. Was that 7?
Yeah, you did. Good job. Okay. We have a second for that motion. Commissioner Cowan.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Connerton, a second by Commissioner Cowan. Okay, now let's have discussion. Commissioner White.
I mean, I think just looking at the first criteria that is not in compliance, the strict application of the code standard for which the variance is sought would produce undue hardship. I think they could come up with a variety of different designs that would meet our code and that would not create hardship for them. So for me, this is a no. I think that's just one. I think that, again, the applicant did not create the hardship by his or her own actions. I mean, they chose a design that is not in compliance with the code, so I think that they are. And, you know, those are just 2. I think I could continue and just go down the list. For me, I think we could come up with I just think that the design could be in compliance with, I feel like the intent of the code is to just protect the character of our community. And I think that for me, this doesn't do it.
Okay. Other comments? Commissioner Sipperly.
I will agree with Commissioner White that I feel like there are just too many circumstances here. Although I think the design is really interesting, I don't think that it is approvable because they brought this hardship upon themselves, in my opinion. Another thing that kind of concerns me is that it's not really a historic structure and it's pretending to be one. I mean, it's not the original tower. If this was a sign on the original tower, I would be much more willing to approve that, but it's looking like it's a piece of railroad history and the railroad wasn't there. So I think it is actually compromising to the community. We've been trying to minimize the amounts of poles on signs and visual clutter. And yes, this sign isn't going to really be in between your view in a lot of places. But it does seem like it is designed to give the business an advantage over their competitors because the sign would be significantly taller than any other allowable sign in that district. So I'm gonna have to lean against approving this, and I hope to maybe see that sign somewhere more appropriate sometime later.
Okay. Commissioner Connerton.
Well, I mean, instead of generic pole signage, I kind of feel like this lines up with, like I was saying a little bit about architecturally, contextually, it's visually themed, yes. And I have to agree that when you're going 75 miles an hour down the highway and you're going eastbound, it's really difficult to see any sign, let alone a sign that's down 100 feet from the highway. And so I think it would be really hard for them, and if not impossible, for them to capture people from the highway when you're traveling either westbound or eastbound. And so this, instead of being so generic on a pole, really brings out some character. And, you know, it's facing east-west. It's not interrupting anything. CDOT doesn't disagree with it. I mean, I know it's not something we looked at in 2014 and it's conceptually very different, but it is something that we're trying to do as a town with the character. And it does meet a lot of the parts of the strategic plan. Not that those two things, we're looking at two different things, but they do intersect at some point where, you know, economic vitality, distinctive character, those things. And so that's why I am voting yes.
Commissioner Houghton.
Yeah, I just keep coming back to our definition in the code of hardship, and I tend to agree that this, I don't think this rises to that level. Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, but is reasonable use not a legal term or concept? Is there some additional baggage behind a reasonable use in that definition?
I don't think for you guys' purpose necessarily there really is
Okay.
any additional baggage. I think in the context of everything, you guys can kind of, you know, it's these things are always kind of a totality of the situation to look at. So I think you're fine.
Yeah, I just think, yeah, it doesn't rise to that definition of hardship that is in our code and that we're, you know, using over and over again in our justification.
Commissioner
It's-
Connerton.
It's a either or, however, does say practical difficulty or hardship. And so I do think it meets practical difficulty.
Commissioner Sipperly.
Jim, could you tell us if it would be a compliant sign if it was painted on the roof like the old one?
Interesting.
I mean, it's pointing in the right direction.
Probably.
Interesting.
Paint on the roof of the, oh, a historic photo.
Yeah.
I think that would be considered attached signage and that would likely exceed the square footage of area permitted for a sign, but it could be done.
She's just been.
No, the roof used to be painted and it said baths
It's
on
like
the
a
roof.
ray
It's
cap.
signage.
You
Yeah.
know,
Big spaghetti.
think of those back when
Yeah.
you traced it right on the country.
No, and I wasn't kidding. I mean, if it was different color shingles or whatever, it seems like it would
Okay.
have to be compliant. But, just
Other-
looking for other options.
Okay.
For the roof sign, the allowance in the code is for 2 square feet of sign per linear foot of the building frontage for that particular building. So we'd have to determine which one is the frontage. I mean,
Last one,
well,
the entry on it.
Well, but I think we're deviating from the request here. We're trying to design something that's not in our purview.
Yep.
Good job, Bill. Okay, Commissioner Guyman.
So one of the undue hardships that was spoken about was that it was lower on the interstate. And you said it was the speaker said it was only by about 5 or 6 feet, right? But they're 17 feet over the maximum. And I'm just wondering, does it have to be 47? You know, I understand where they're coming from, the undue hardship, as far as it being lower, so it's harder to see. I guess I'm just trying to get there. But 17 feet over, so that would be 26 feet, they would have it as the maximum height. But they're at 47 feet. Is that right? Or what's the height of the actual sign?
Yes, correct. You know, I think that that's within the applicant's purview if they wish to do that. They could revise their application and bring a different request to you. But again, I don't think it's up to you all to design
Design
it
it.
for them or
Correct.
to approve something that's not being
What
requested.
was the height of the actual sign? Because
30
applicants said
to 44.
38,
Yeah,
38 to 44.
38 to 44. Okay, still pretty high.
the actual sign is 43. The top of the actual lettering is 43 feet.
43 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, Connie? Or comments? Your comments?
Well, I really do like the look of it as far as like historical. I know it's not actually historical. And I do think it would add a unique character to our town to see something like that when you're driving down the interstate.
Thank you. Commissioner Cowan.
Yeah, just reiterating from Commissioner Connerton that is practical difficulty or undue hardship. So that's kind of a determinative phrase there. And also, I believe kind of going to that a little bit, I think like sightline wise, we're coming up on 70. So from the tower, from the sign, we're looking at a 5 to 6 foot reduction, I guess, in sightline height because we are elevated on the interstate. I think that's how I understood kind of that presentation. So I think effective signage height would be somewhere in that 38, if I'm doing math right in my head. So somewhere there.
Okay, other.
Yeah, well, just to add to that, Gregory, I did go to Google Earth and just get an estimate of the elevation of where this sign is as compared to the adjacent roadway. And there was approximately 10 foot of elevation difference. That's very approximate. But.
So 33. If my math is correct. Okay, yeah, here's, so, okay, what do you have? Commissioner White.
This is just a comment, but I think that we live in a community that is very, very, very sensitive to signage. And so for me, when you're pushing well beyond the variance or the code, I'm just a little hesitant to do that. I think even, in past applications that we've seen, increasing font was even perceived as kind of a onerous thing. And so for me, this feels like a big push.
Okay. Commissioner Connerton.
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I just think that there is some practical difficulty with this site. I think that this is architecturally not obnoxious. I also think that, I'd rather see something like this than a 40-foot Maverick sign that I drive by often. And in East, if you're going down Highway 6, you see a lot of signs that I would rather not see at all. And this one seems like you would see what, maybe 5 feet of it or 8 feet of it? Is that what everybody decided from the highway? So 10, is 10 feet? Is that what he said? 10?
No, I'm just saying that's
Top.
that's
top
the
10 feet
elevation
that-
difference between the location where this sign's going to
Mhm.
be and the roadway.
Right, it's like 30,
Mhm.
yeah, 33.
The max 20.
Yep, by the code. Okay. Okay, I think it's tough. So here's a couple thoughts I have is on, I also kind of like the sign. And I think if I think of the comp plan, we're trying to make our community look more small townish, look better, that sort of thing. And pole signs remind me of, I'm driving down South Glenwood or somewhere. I mean, someplace that's more signage kind of thing. So that's kind of one of my things from a look, and I agree, it's not the historical thing that we looked at when we saw from back in the day. It sure isn't like that, but it's more in that way than a pole sign sticking up there on a red colored pole or a brown colored pole. And I think Commissioner Connerton did a pretty good job of trying to go through coming up with hardship. And again, it's a tough thing, I mean, it's, it is a tough thing to define. And, the property, I think that's as good as anything for the physical site for me. And I think from being in the community for a lot of people, it's kind of a barren place, there's not a lot of stuff around it. There's the CDOT building, which is kind of like where trucks go in and out of and all that sort of thing. There's not, it's a large space where there's not much. So I'm kind of, I think I'm leaning to support it, or to approve the variance, I think is what I'm kind of coming from, but it's good to hear all the conversations, and I understand all of the stuff and the code. It's difficult. So other thoughts, or Commissioner Sipperly?
I just feel it would be setting a dangerous precedent. You know, if we let this really twice as tall as allowable sign come through, the next guy's gonna expect us to do the same. And then I'm just worried that the whole intent of the sign cone is thrown out the window. So as much as I do like this particular sign, I can't justify these 5 negatives that staff found in the report.
Okay. Commissioner Connerton.
And because it's Commissioner Sipperly's last evening, I respectfully disagree, Karen. But I kind of feel like every variance is site specific. And we can look at, and when somebody comes to us with a variance, we're looking at that site in particular. I'm not looking at this broadly. And yes, maybe people might get excited about it, but that doesn't mean we're going to approve every variance that comes before us. I think that this one does have this practical difficulty, and that's why I'm moving to approve. So.
Commissioner White.
Except for we inevitably ask the question, are there any other signs like this in town? So we do use it as something that we weigh that in our decision, absolutely. And I do believe it does give people the option to come forward and feel like there's going to be acceptance. And you're right, obviously we do review every application, but there is a consideration placed on that, I think.
Okay. Any other comments?
How many do we have to have to approve or deny?
4 to 3.
4 to 3.
Any other comments or? Okay. Commissioner Houghton.
Yes, I just clarify that I understand it's practical difficulty or undue hardship, but I don't see either of those that are preventing the use of the land as otherwise allowed by the code. I think there's a number of ways that within the guardrails of the code that could be used and put to reasonable use.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, any other? Okay, I think let's,
Will you clarify when we vote yes, it's for the motion?
well, so we're voting to, yeah.
Yes is an approval.
A yes is approval, because, yeah, a yes is an approval. And I think so the verbiage to Jim's last page of the alternative motion to approve. I mean, do you have that good enough, or?
Yeah, lots and lots of findings.
If we
Thank you.
do.
That was
No,
great.
but I mean,
That was great.
no, but okay, so we have those, you know, whether you approve or deny, those are there so that. Okay,
Read is yes. Red is
Commissioner Guy.
Are we only voting on the action 1?
No.
The motion was for both.
For both. Okay, got it. Thank you.
And that's kind of consistent with how Jim did his thing too. He
Yeah,
did
it
not
was-
do.
It was laid out as a joint motion, both to
Correct.
move to deny or move to.
Right.
You're fine.
That was a good question though.
Good question.
Okay, I mean, is that, so a vote of yes is approval. Given the criteria plus additional comments, I guess, additional findings get added to that. Okay.
Let's call it.
Let's call it.
The motion passes 4-3.
Okay. Thank you, Jim, and thank you, applicant.
Thank you. Sorry for the noticing brain damage.
Usually like we're fighting.
You're relieved through.
They're so mean.
He's relieved. He's like, I don't have to go build a water tank on my property.
I put it on that, but it would have made it harder.
You're gonna fill that thing up with beer. That's all I wanna know.
No, he's a. Oh, they're just.
Okay. Okay, let's move on.
That was the most tumultuous we've ever gotten. Since
That was
since
wild.
the old,
Since the lights.
Yeah, exactly.
The cops were here.
I thought it was good. I thought it was good discussion. I mean, I thought it was a good discussion. And it's not a, that was a good.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
Okay, shh. Hey, okay.
Turning into Iris.
We should have poll signs. Okay, we're not going there. We're not done.
Not done. Oh, I'm done. Fucking done. The fish.
I'm gonna miss you.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, I'm gonna bring us back to order here. Okay, okay, the next item is a work session on lighting and illumination. And Emery,
Yes. Okay.
This is gonna be lively and fun.
There should have been cake. That's all I gotta say.
Leftovers.
So for this work session, I have a pretty short presentation with a couple points. And then we'll kind of just go from there. Staff does have some points we can talk about, but also too, it's the idea, it's kind of open, ask questions, discuss things, just get this topic kind of started and see where it goes. So I'll share my screen here. Oh, great.
I saw stuff in the packet.
Okay, so work session on lighting and illumination.
Just for John.
So first topics for tonight, kind of go through 4 different sections, just general concepts, lighting and illumination, how it works, how it's measured, how it's regulated, lighting districts, lighting types, and then also including signage in here as well. So I guess just to point out before we get into it, there's 2 separate sections of code. There is an entire section devoted just to lighting, like exterior lighting fixtures. And then there's the other section, which you were just talking about, which is just specific for signage. And so you do have it in both. So first, if you're going to regulate something, you do have to measure it. And so this is typically how light is measured. And so a lumen measures the power of a source. So if you think of a light bulb, how much light does that give off? And the amount of illumination, that to which degree, you can see, that's a separate unit of measure. Here in the United States, we do it with a foot candle. And then everywhere else in the world use something called a lux, which is based on 1 square meter instead of 1 square foot. So like in this diagram, 1 lumen, basically think of like 1 candle, it illuminates a certain area. That's a foot candle. And so that's how, with our code, mostly we do this for measurement. So source is lumen, the amount of illumination is a foot candle, and you'll often see that in something. So this is a lighting plan. And so you can see that little block and circle that represents the lighting fixture, which is going to have a set amount of lumens for its output. And then all of the figures that you see there, that's the amount in foot candles. So you can see, and this is a clip, so there's other fixtures in this lighting plan, but you can see, okay, when you're closer to the fixture, it's at 5.5, 6.1. So there's other lights in this plan, but that's the general idea, as you can understand quickly looking at a lighting plan, how bright something is. And again, that's how our eyes perceive the brightness too. So within the city, The way similar to just like zoning districts or sign districts, we also have lighting districts, and we have 3 of them. The first district is commercial mixed use, more intensive zoning districts grouped into one lighting district called District 1. And then we have 2 and 3, which is basically comprised of all the other zoning districts. So one important thing to point out here is that it's based on zoning district and not use. So you could have a multifamily development in the commercial zoning district, and it would fall under all the lighting standards for District 1, which means that that site could be lit a little bit brighter than a multifamily development in RH zoning district in District 2. So you could have the same use in 2 different places fall under some pretty different lighting standards. So again, it's really specific to zoning. So this is just an example of how those standards differ. And so this is one of the main standards we have for illumination is it involves how much light basically leaves the property or light trespass. And so in lighting District 1, which is that more intensive zoning district, you can have up to 5-foot candles at the property line at point A, and then point B, which is 10 feet past your property line, it's 3. And so you can see there's a pretty big difference between Districts 1 and then Districts 2 and 3. And then just again, to illustrate the point, you have point A, point B. So lighting districts, which ones they are and where they are. And so this is just a map. So again, you can see lighting District 1, kind of the more commercial corridors, lighting District 2, and then lighting District 3. So that's where they are in town. It would be worth to point out, you can see some gaps. So for example, part of Glen doesn't show up on here. That's because that's a PUD. And so that has very specific standards to that area. And these standards don't necessarily apply. Now that being said, not every PUD has a whole lot on lighting. So as far as regulation, that's definitely, I mean, visually it's kind of a gap, but also as far as the rules go as well. And then lighting types. And so there's different types of fixtures. You hear one just way to look at lighting is you can have it be shielded, partially shielded, or fully shielded. And that refers to how much light escapes past the horizontal. So an unshielded fixture, light is going everywhere. It's going up, down, around. Then you can have kind of partially shielded. So again, reducing that angle. And then finally, you can have something that's fully shielded where it just directs the light downward. So again, just to illustrate the point, District 1, all fixtures must be full cutoff. So that, you know, you can do higher lighting in those districts, but everything has to be full cutoff. And then when you get to 2 and 3, there's a little more flexibility, which again, kind of coming back to that lumen measure, you could have, for example, in lighting District 2, you can have something that maybe isn't fully shielded, but there's a limit on how many lumens that light source can have. So your light fixture cannot exceed a certain amount of lighting power. Another thing that you can regulate is lighting color. And so if you just look at this picture, you know, there's definitely the way the human eye perceives light is different depending on what color it is. And this is also an aspect of illumination regulation. City currently does not regulate for color as far as fixtures. And the way that it works is basically, so these are all the different colors, and you measure it with some, you know, Kelvin, which is usually for temperature. So the idea is if you heated something up to 10,000 Kelvin, that's what it would glow as, think like a blacksmith. And so Dark Sky International, which is an organization that promotes like night sky and illumination regulation, they generally recommend you don't go over 3,000 Kelvin. Which, so for example, if the city were to add regulation, that might be in addition to the lumen limit, you'd also have this. And so if like you look at a light bulb, think about what that looks like. And again, this is exterior illumination. This doesn't apply to lighting fixtures inside a restaurant, inside a retail shop. This is all exterior. So again, that's how it's measured and generally what it looks like. So the bluer light, you know, kind of go back to this first picture, human eye kind of perceives that as brighter. So, and then it's kind of reverse, you know, you describe sort of a warmer light, but that's actually on the lower end of the spectrum where a cool light is, it's a little bit reverse thinking there. So that kind of covers all of the areas of regulation for exterior lighting. And then we also talk about illumination and signage. And so one way, and we've talked about this with different sign variances, is just how something is lit. So it can be internally illuminated, which basically the light source is within the sign, and you might have like a translucent letter, other methods, but basically it's inside the sign. And versus indirect, which is where you'd have light maybe downcast. That's what code requires, but basically an exterior source. And so just for some examples, this is a pretty standard internally illuminated sign, face lit letters. That light source is within the sign. It's here. You have the letter face, kind of glowy. So that's one type of sign. Another one is neon. And so that's, you have a tube filled with neon gas and then the lighting elements inside of it. So again, internally illuminated. So that's another type. This is an electronic message board. So these are prohibited by code. But again, that's your light source is internal to the sign. This is another good example. So you can also just have the really simple like cabinet sign where you can see some of these definitely are illuminated and some of these are not. And so that's kind of the contrast between the two. So those are some other examples. Externally illuminated signs. So these are just examples. You're gonna have downcast light. Here's your sign, doesn't have a lighting element itself. And then there's the lights. Another version of this is what's called halo style signage. So that's where, it gives you that visual of maybe an internally illuminated sign, but what's happening is you have your sign face and the wall, and that light is shining into the wall, and then the halo effect, that's how you get that. So code, we consider this an externally illuminated sign. So one example of this is in the downtown core, you cannot have, an internally illuminated sign, but you can have an externally illuminated one. So like A&B Bank, Yampa Hot Springs, they have halo lit signs, which are considered externally illuminated. So this is an example of another way you can do this where you have upward directed lighting. So this is not allowed because it shines light up, but it's just another example of how you can have external illumination. And then we do have time limits. So any sign within 300 feet of a residential zoning district has to be turned off by 10 p.m. or 1 hour later than close of business. So that's specific to just being close to a residential zoning district. So that kind of takes a different metric as opposed to looking at lighting districts. So this is an example. This could be something that commission could discuss, whether should this just be across the board? Do we need signs illuminated 24/7? Because right now it just is if it's close to a residence, a residential zoning district. So again, you could have, residential uses in a commercial zoning district, this wouldn't apply. And then, like I mentioned, internally illuminated signs are not allowed in the downtown core. There is an exception for neon signs. I would say that, regardless of whether something is externally illuminated or internally illuminated, the amount of light that it gives off could be the same. So partly where that standard comes from is a little bit more of on the aesthetic side than the actual brightness piece. So again, so just kind of thinking spectrum of lighting and what it means to the community. That's the start. And then again, just for maybe discussion points, just a couple things, external versus internally illuminated, the differences in the lighting districts, potential for regulating lighting color, or really just anything else that you'd like to discuss or have questions on. I think the goal too is we can have this conversation tonight, and if there's any recommendations or things that you would like staff to follow up on at a future planning and zoning commission meeting, such as like a proposed code amendment, that would maybe be another goal of the discussion tonight.
Yep. So just to add to that, back in our work session with City Council in the fall, there were only a couple of issues where there was shared concern or questions about, one of which was lighting. The other one was housing. That's a little bit larger of a conversation. We've had a couple work sessions on that. We're going to bring that back to you here in the next couple of months. But this one, I think there's clear guidance, right? It's we're losing our dark sky. We're losing our stars at night. And what can we do to help that, to codify that in our lighting standards? I think, and what we did is we tried to use the template dark sky standards and evaluate those against our code to say, okay, well, where are we lacking? What can we do? And I think really, Emery did a good job of kind of identifying those, and this might be something that we could move forward on quicker. And then if you like that, if we can find some consensus around that, we'll bring forward some code amendments to mandate that. I want to be careful in that a lot of our light pollution is existing. Legal non-conforming signage. We're not going to solve our dark sky problem with these regulations. That's a much bigger effort that probably would take a lot of outreach and education with folks. But this is a good start.
Okay, no, that was good. So it's a work session. I'm just thinking we should all be turned on.
Yeah.
Don't you agree, Verse? Like we did last time. Don't take that, you guys are.
For purposes
Wait,
of the
this is
recording and
I know.
minutes, it would be helpful if you'd speak one at a time, though.
So, are you okay with that? That's what we did. I think at our last one, when we sat around the table, I think then we can feed off each other. It seems like it flows better. Okay, so let's just turn everybody on. Good for you.
I know, I won't be swearing.
Okay,
I just had 3 questions and
Just 3.
to get us started. Is that okay?
yeah, let me
they're
throw one thing more out.
They're easy.
Let's just start from this way and we'll just go down the road. Cause she's kicking it off, but I don't care. And you can add on whenever, but okay, go Amy.
Where does LED fit into that presentation?
It would be interior illuminated signs. So it's
So-
LEDs. Well, it depends. You can have an LED exterior fixture. You could have an LED. So a lot of times, you could have a sign that mimics, where did the neon sign go? You can have a sign that mimics neon, but instead of actually the gas inside the tube, it's an LED.
Okay.
So LED doesn't, in the regulations, it's more about what that LED does. How bright is it? Where is it located on a property?
I guess I always thought LED was brighter,
No.
but
Sorry to
no.
step on you, but I worked for an LED lighting
Really?
manufacturer. And so you can run the gamut in color, temperature with LED. It's
Okay.
just more efficient. You can have, that's why I think typically it's perceived as brighter. People put the same wattage fixture in and it's maybe 10 times brighter than an incandescent bulb.
Yes, I just did that. That's why I asked. And I had to go back to Lowe's. Frida's sign, it's digital?
So that's an example of, like Trent said, we have a number of legal non-conforming signs. So Grease Monkey, Culver's, and Frida's. would
Okay.
be the 3 that I can think of. So as long as they have their sign, you can maintain a legal non-conforming sign.
Okay.
So those aren't going anywhere. And that was when we did the code revision in 2018, they were allowed. So you saw a couple get put in. You have a lot of negative impacts from it. And then now it's a prohibited sign. So
They're not allowed to change pictures more than once or twice a day, right?
yeah.
Oh,
It
really?
was like Cadoba when they.
It used to flash and it was horrible, like the one at Thunder River.
Okay. So, and then last but not least is how many neon signs do we have?
1, 2,
Riviera,
is neon.
Riviera?
Dock.
Stocks,
I know
Dock.
Doc is.
2.
Ross bail bonds,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, bail bonds.
So I think
Okay.
there's
How
a
come you know
handful.
that one?
Interesting.
And those are perceived as more aesthetically pleasing because
Yeah.
they're a little vibey.
I mean, I think you could have a lot of arguments for both sides.
Yeah,
And
you're
then
right.
LED,
But they're kind of, it is sort of-
people say, oh, it's the same.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
They're kind of.
Substantial.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Did you go, Greg?
I guess, not a whole lot. It's a general question about when and this, I know this has come up in our previous meetings, but when's the last time that we did a hard look at our lighting code?
You may know better than I do. It was prior to me being with the city, so longer than 10 years.
Yeah, we did an aggressive code in the early 2000s, and I think in the kind of the gap when I was just special counsel and Dan Shute was the attorney here. I want to say they revised that and loosened it up quite a bit. We had a pretty aggressive dark sky ordinance that went into effect right around 2000. Got backed off of it was very difficult to comply with at the time, and maybe it was just 20 years too early. I don't know. So I think that was the last time. So it was probably the 2010-ish would be my guess. The last time it was really looked at.
All right, thanks.
One thing I'd add to that too, kind of like looking at code and then reviewing it. So, City of Flagstaff is one of the largest cities that has like the dark sky community. And we do have a lot of things like the full cutoff fixtures, lighting districts. So I'd say that we're good on a lot of fronts. One maybe challenge is we don't approve electric permits. So if let's say you're a homeowner and you say, I need a light on my garage, you just go get an electrician that permits through the state of Colorado. Now there might be a non-cutoff fixture on your garage that's shining into your neighbor's house.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a gap of like, we're not reviewing permits, electric permits. So.
They were shunting.
And you're saying that was from an interior application though, right? Not.
Oh, no, I mean like exterior, like if you wanted to put an exterior light outside your garage.
Yeah, like if I want to do a new.
Yeah, we're not reviewing those versus, like other aspects that we're going to review.
Even if there was a
Development standards. But, if you build a new fourplex, there is a lighting plan doing it. So that's where what Trent was getting at. It's like, we have an amount of light in the community, and how do you regulate that? How do you go about it? Some communities will do like buybacks, like, we'll pay you to replace your exterior fixtures with like a cutoff.
Right.
Thanks.
That's all?
Here we go. Cracking knuckles.
I do sort of like the idea of revisiting, turning signs off at night. In certain districts, the signs are on all night long, and I suppose, if you're traveling up and down the highway, like 82 or 70, there's some merit to that, especially if you're looking for a hotel, like they're not closed, so their signs could stay on. But I would like to have us, revisit, maybe they should all turn off at a certain time. And as we know, there could be residences in a commercial or mixed use district. I think one of the biggest offenders in light pollution is frankly the city of Glenwood Springs. This new park across there on 6th Street has been making the news with all of its super bright bollards. Apparently it's to deter the homeless population from hanging out over there, but it deters everyone from hanging out over there. And it's these very glaring
Which one
and
is
bright. The 6th Street crossing.
The north.
Over
The
there
brand
by the
new.
Hotel
Oh, no,
Colorado.
Yeah, the north end.
I saw the
Yeah.
council talking
Yeah, the north
about
lane.
that,
Yep,
lights shining
I've heard
into
so.
the eyes.
And the lighting at Two Rivers Park is a little bit over the top, and the street lights outside of my house are some of the more historic ones that I don't believe are shielded, and then there's usually 3 of those, and then one of the big ones. So part of it is from the city, and I think that would be some sort of easy pickings as we begin to upgrade some of our infrastructure and utilities. Additionally, I have actually copied Emery on some other correspondence. There's an apartment building behind my house, and they have unshielded streetlights. They have bulbs hanging along their whole porch. They don't turn off ever. I've spoken to the property manager, and she says, you can't even see those from your house. I'm like, well, I can though. And nothing was ever done. I'm not quite sure how to go. And part of the problem with that is across the alley is the line between 2 different lighting districts. So yes, that's a multi-family apartment building, and I'm in a single family. Whose jurisdiction am I in? It's the offenders district or the recipients district, because it's really cut up all through the historic downtown. And a while back, I know Commissioner Waller brought it up, but the idea of having variable lighting levels in parking lots, more motion sensors, light sensors, and keep it when it's not being used, turn those lights down as much as we can, turn them on for safety. But I think we should stick with as minimal light as we can for safety and access, and try and keep our skies maintained as they are.
Okay. Good. What Carolyn just talked at, that was something, in fact, I put a late minute call into like Clear and to CMC. I know when I was at CMC, we did the parking lot lights. I mean, I think to me, the residential ones and the ones you're talking about, I think those are all a big deal. But I think the parking lots they're like landing strips for alien things or something. I mean, I live I live off Midland, so I don't see that, but I hear all of my friends that live in West Glenwood, they're looking at the mall and all, that it's just lit up.
Mhm.
And I know one of, and it's, there's the city, but a lot of it are commercial properties. So that's kind of, I guess, what I'm getting at. And one thing that I did when I worked for Clear, and I was an energy manager kind of person, and I worked throughout Garfield County with all the municipalities. And one thing that Clear was good at was doing grants. So we would talk to businesses and try to get them to put things in. And you can't make people change from what they have, but maybe there's some with Garfield Clean Energy or with some other organizations to try to figure out how do we incentivize some things, to work with people to do that. And anyway, but I think parking lots, to what Carolyn just said, I think those are a big deal. I like the stuff you said on the dark sky. And I kind of like the signs at night, the downtown lights, and maybe it's an hour after they close or something like that. I think you brought that up, Emery. I mean, I think that's a good thing to kind of look at, and hotels they're never closed, so they'd be on or whatever, but I don't think it seems like you don't need to be advertising then, but I don't know. Let's see.
And that's already in our code, isn't it?
But it's only if you're within 300 feet of a residential zone.
Oh,
district.
okay.
So like if you have a
So we
sign.
could expand that to different districts.
You could just say it's across the board, was
Yeah.
what Emery was kind of
Got it.
proposing. I
Yeah.
thought that was
So the Iron Mountain one doesn't get turned off.
the what?
The new Iron Mountain sign won't get turned off
Oh, what?
because it's not near a residential district.
No, but yeah, but with what we're talking about.
Just
It
approved.
stays on. Right.
East-west.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm
east-west
talking
people.
about the things that go up,
Yeah.
right?
Yep, love it.
Yeah, like, anyway, that's,
And it's.
so anyway, I think I think that was a good thing. And I, Carolyn talked about the light districts next to each other. I don't know how you deal with that, but I agree that's a tough one. That's a tough thing. And maybe that's on the commercial thing of ramping lights or something, I don't know of how you do it, but anyway, it's a tough thing. And I hadn't heard about anyone can install whatever they want to. I think trying to figure out how you go after that in some way, I don't know.
Well,
Seems difficult, but so that was a good,
No more per.
tough. And then one last thing that I liked that Emery talked about was, so are there some metrics or benchmarks that we'd like to look at? I don't know if Flagstaff's the one or whatnot, but where you can look at other people that have gone through. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have gone through this and done it, but I think that's a good idea to where we can learn from some other people. Okay, there's mine.
Yeah, I think the thing that popped into my brain was what you just said, is it'd be nice to see who the example is, or, I think Hannah did this with housing once, basically brought up one or two examples of people that are doing it really well, and then kind of a table of how we fall in that with our code, and to look at something really tangible that we could look at and say, oh, well, we're way far off on this item. We'd like to inch closer to dark sky code in this area. I think I would also like to see what other municipalities are doing to incentivize people to, businesses or residences to trend out of those brighter situations and to be more compliant with dark sky practices. So just kind of looking at the examples and not reinventing the wheel, see how others are doing it.
I guess I'll start off. I feel pretty strongly that the curfew should be applied citywide, not just to, a certain distance to a residential zone district, because that light is traveling. I also feel pretty strongly about the color temperature. I don't think it's been mentioned yet, but there's a number of reasons.
So I have a question on the color temperature. Emery kind of talked about it too. So is that, that's when you talked about the dark sky, that it was 3,000
Yeah, so
Kelvin,
actually,
was that what that was? So that's,
that 3000 Kelvin is a longer wavelength of light, and so it doesn't travel as far as my understanding of the reasoning behind. So a light in Glenwood Springs would have less effect the further you get away from it. It also has detrimental effects on migratory birds, specifically the colder temperatures do. And it's, I don't think it's an onerous ask, because like I said, you can get pretty much whatever you want in LED. And you can dial it into what you would like to see. So I don't think it's onerous on an applicant.
so I have just a question on that. So when, and Emery put up the shielded, fixtures and that sort of thing. So if you have a shielded fixture, and I know as you do your lighting, I forget whatever it's called, your lighting plan, your photometric on things. So if you have a shielded one, then you're not getting as much expansion of your light, going out. I mean, so does, when you're doing shielded, does the Kelvin or the color of the light matter as much, or how do those two play with each other, I guess is what my question is.
I mean, I would say the ideal is both shielded and
Both shielded.
3000 or warm color temperature. Out of curiosity, do you know where the ban on linear lighting comes from specifically? I mean, I know the definition references highlighting architectural features and things like that, which I can understand regulating, but I don't think a blanket ban on linear lighting. I don't feel like we need that.
What is linear?
It'd be like, traditionally it would have been like a T5 tube in a troffer, like a.
You're talking.
You're speaking.
Like,
when you see businesses or communities where like there is a bar of light across the top of the building, top edge of the building, or frames the entire building, that I think is what this is directed at, is
Okay.
sort of
That's
linear lighting,
Okay.
or it's just a single tube or a single LED strip that runs
Okay.
all the way around something, typically the facade of the building.
I guess I would just say, I feel like there are ways to use that are responsible or tasteful, if you will. So I
Can use it, still respect the dark sky.
yeah.
I think that's a classic one that falls into both dark sky, but
And
also
aesthetic.
design standards, right?
Yeah, I guess that's what I had. Oh, well, I will say I feel strongly that curfew should also apply to parking lots or security lighting. I think what Chair Waller is talking about is, it's called bi-level dimming.
That's
you
what we
have,
do at CMC.
a full brightness, and then after, let's say 30 minutes of no activity, it goes to a lower level and then goes back to the higher level at
When
when it
it's
detects
re-
motion.
And that was a big thing that we did with residential campuses, where you have co-eds or whatnot walking into parking lots that you needed to ramp up from a safety, security kind of thing. But then when you don't need it on 90% of the time or 90, whatever, that was kind of.
Would that apply to the park spaces as well? Is it safe enough for park spaces or to deter?
No,
I think so.
deter-
no, yeah, I
Yeah,
think it does.
I think it would be appropriate.
Yeah.
I mean, Two Rivers is not that bright unless there's a baseball game.
No, there's a bright light.
Where is it?
Oh, I walk my puppy there like 5 o'clock in the morning. It is like, I feel like it's daytime
Rivers?
at the Two Rivers Park. Yeah, like over
What?
by the softball field. There's this giant
Oh,
bright
that
light that I
one,
think
the
is
tall one.
trying to welcome
Okay.
aliens into
Okay,
the
that one. But like
reaching
when
out
you're
to outer
going-
space.
When you're going across the footbridge and then under the railroad tracks, I would have to disagree that there's bright lights. I would say that's very dark.
Well, you're saying that
That's
there
not the
could be
park,
more
though.
lighting, and that's
Yeah.
different than what she's saying.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but yes, you're right. That tall, bright light, you're right, yeah.
It's like inappropriate, so.
Yeah, because you want to have
Right.
safety,
Yeah.
but at the same time, yeah.
What is that all about? I mean, it is nice because I throw the ball
And you can see
actually
with
slow
bulb,
down.
I know what you're talking about.
At 5
Yeah.
AM, what is wrong with
That's so
you?
funny.
You're a good mommy. Keeps her calm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't want to be blinded by the light.
Unless you're Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd start a song.
Was that Bruce? Was that Springsteen?
Live by the light.
Yeah, who knows the next line?
I know the wrong, I know the wrong. I know, exactly,
Sorry.
exactly. So what you, and one, I'll throw a comment in that I liked that, Carolyn kind of threw out was that, and I don't think the city's necessarily the worst offender, but I think the city could be a good role model.
Yeah,
Of
that's a
going
better
through
way to
that,
put
as
it.
you come through things and going through and, whether it's Two Rivers Park, whether it's, and the streetlights are an interesting thing because they're historic and, but they're, the antithesis of what we're talking about, but they're, so I don't know how you do things, but I think it's, that would be a great role model kind of thing of leading forward.
I think that Joy's idea of bringing us tangible ideas from a community that's similar to what we're trying to accomplish so that we can look at it. So there's no cockamamie ideas out there. That'd be great.
Yeah, I guess I get concerned about, the curfew context within commercial districts. Sorry, Commissioner Guyman, you haven't gone yet. Do you want to?
Oh, you go.
Yeah, you go ahead.
You go, Connie.
I wanted to, well, a lot of things have already been said, but I do think the city is a big offender. Just being out there in the evenings and early mornings, I think that a lot of those lights could be turned down. And maybe it's not just the city. I mean, I'm thinking about under the bridge. Under every bridge, there's lights. There's, it's not just, and I understand there's probably a cross between safety and keeping the unhoused from sleeping under bridges. But I don't know if that really is that helpful. And I think the same thing with the North Landing, the intersection between safety and light pollution, I do appreciate streetlights. I think their streetlights are great, and I don't think that those are, it's more the under bridges, under the big bridge, under all the bridges. There's just so many lights, and the big light at Two Rivers. I got used to by now. And I think also downtown, like you guys said, they're in the early morning hours, they don't need to have all of their signs on. So having some sort of curfew for signage, no matter what lighting zone they're in, I agree. The last thing is that I really wanted to bring back the topic of what we were too proactive for 20 years ago. Like, what was that? Can we, like, what did people have so many problems with?
Yeah.
And can we go back to some of those?
Yeah, I
ideas?
think I don't remember exactly. I think a lot of it had to do with, it was going to be a fairly aggressive program, especially in the residential areas, trying to get people to change out fixtures and bulbs and
LEDs were $1 million.
yeah, LEDs were $1 million back then. No, it was like, the downlighting, the cutoff, I think some of the commercial concerns that I think are, that we have struggled with, I'll be honest with you, on a security basis for a number of businesses in town. And so I think it was things like that. Just, I think it was, there was a citizens group that worked for, I don't know, a year or so on that. We could try to go back and dig through it and try to find it. Like I said, it was pretty, it was pretty forward for the times. I just think it was kind of a struggle to implement, and there was enough pushback in the community around it. And as you guys know, you've been up here for long enough to know that change is hard. And the government telling you to do anything is generally viewed, no pun intended, in a very dim light.
Pun totally intended. Totally intended.
No pun intended.
I would
That was a good
just
one for you.
say. That was good. That was good.
It's been weeks I've been watching.
So appreciate it.
I would just say that, as it relates to commercial use, and even residential use, anything that would be, considered a liability for homeowners or property insurance, I would say that we would want to weigh that as well, as it relates to security. I don't know if people check on your lighting through commercial, just underwriting through insurance, so that
And
would be
that's,
something to
thank you.
consider.
And that's where I was gonna
Yeah,
speak to, is just, choose the width of that brush appropriately as it applies to
Yep.
some of these districts, and really curious what kind of examples other communities are doing in that regard. And I think Carl spoke to maybe some past kind of challenges implementing that idea. So yeah, not only just as a, I think we want to check in and kind of acknowledge the boogeyman a little bit with our businesses in town, and solicit their feedback, and really kind of propose some solutions for them to as part of this. Because not only the actual real concerns that we have about, theft or breaking and entering, and just general malfeasance on our properties, but also so to our property insurers, I want to make sure that we're doing best practices to keep that property safe. So.
Yeah, one thought I had, I think you kind of mentioned it a little bit, was that, how do you get, this is a public involvement kind of thing. I mean, we have we don't like Two Rivers, or I don't like certain, we have certain things that are our things, and I don't know all of this stuff for the commercial district or for various things. And I think, Carl, you mentioned that there was some users groups or something like that. I mean, and it almost seems like there's different ones, There's a different one for maybe downtown, and there might be a different one for residential, and
Yeah, and I think, as it's been a long time ago, I want to say that there was kind of an ad hoc committee that council appointed to work on it. That really, and they spent a lot of, like I said, spent a lot of time on it. And so I think it was a big enough change then, and maybe it isn't that big of a change now, because we have had lighting regulations in place and things like that. But it definitely, for whatever reason, it becomes one of those things that the public gets really interested in.
I think so.
And there are strong feelings about both, for aggressive dark skies and for the concerns over who's in my backyard, and I want my motion sensor light to come on when the bear comes through, or the skunk, or whatever, I mean, so there's a lot of feelings.
I think more people are gonna be familiar with the, talk about keeping dark skies, and there's a lot of dark sky communities in Colorado. So I think we'll probably have better luck now than we did 20 years ago, getting folks to sign on in support of this. But also, I would like to see, other than humans, some data on what the lights affect. We talked about bird migration, but what else might we be missing that could be sort of long-term and reaching beyond our city limits?
Yeah, and 20 years ago, they didn't have security cameras that have where you can see anything, even if it's dark out.
Yeah.
So
it does seem like the police department should weigh in on safety matters, and just because they probably have their own thoughts on lighting standards from a safety standpoint.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference between, I think this was said at city council too, making it so that it's illuminated enough that you can see somebody coming, and lights just shining in your eyes,
Yes.
and then you can't see anything.
See.
is this gonna help you?
We want a report.
Emery
next
just
time.
wants to-
I think it does.
A 30-pager.
I think some of the regulation changes are certainly something we could do some more outreach on. Also incentives and public outreach and education related to this issue, I think will have a big impact. And certainly if there are lights that are violating you individually, I recommend you.
I think you heard.
I wasn't even trying to be funny. I mean, I'm just saying, we can certainly investigate those in terms of, if we receive complaints. So
Rearrange furniture.
And maybe Pete, or I don't know, if you have a fixture that's unshielded, how expensive is it to put a shield on it? Does it always require getting a new fixture? Or can you just go get something to cut that down?
And I remember when the, what are those little swirly light ones called? Those the LEDs?
CFLs, compact fluorescent.
I remember there
That's
was
when
like
you were
campaigns
smoking
where they would
weed.
just like hand them out to you. So I don't know if there's like
yeah,
anything where they could like have hand out shields. I don't know.
That each
Like
fixture is
some sort of campaign where you can get free ones.
Clear is still doing like,
Right.
you have to go through the whole thing, like Pete mentioned, but you do have to fill out the application and go through this whole process and they come and identify like some energy things in your house and around your house
Mhm.
even. Cause I just did it and it's not that expensive. They give you all these ideas and
Mhm.
stuff. Cause
I did that.
My neighbor was upset about a light, so I was like, let me fix that.
Well, I think someone mentioned about a buyback program or, you know.
Yeah.
That they,
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I don't think these are any answers, but these are potential things I think to look at and to me, it doesn't seem like, you know, what, we haven't done it in 15 years or whatever, so we don't have to have it done, you know,
Tomorrow.
in 2 or 3 months or something.
Except for that light.
It seems like doing it correctly is I mean, you know, have a process that you go through.
And I think we have early adopters in our city, and then we have, like, if you could I just noticed when the new trash cans came out, how it took some people weeks to put their trash out because they were refusing to do trash, but they've
all paid.
eventually adopt.
Because otherwise the
stand-
trash wasn't gonna get picked up.
And if we do come
I
to a
agree.
consensus as a city, it seems like, you know, it's kind of in line, like we're hydropower. It's like, it seems like it would be a good,
I think it's great.
a good way to just, again, propagate that we're doing things right in our city, and set the example like we've talked about.
So what is next? What would,
So get to work.
yeah, what happens next? I mean, is Emery or you guys gonna do?
Yeah, I think some outreach would be very important for this one in terms of, you know, for bringing forward things like curfews, simple changes like Kelvin standards for lighting. I think that's pretty straightforward. That's something that we can evaluate when we're doing plan reviews. But I think it will take some community outreach in terms of some of the things that will actually have the big impact that we're all looking for.
I don't know. I think a lot of the downtown, like, I don't think they realize they leave their signs on. Like, I think some of them are just gonna be like, oh, let me turn it off. We're in bed anyway. Who cares?
And I remember when,
It's 3 o'clock in the
when
morning.
I was at CMC remember we put the new signage up,
Downtown.
right, yeah, downtown on the building, and we had a timer that was on it that had to shut it off at, I forget the time. After I
Does
went to
it,
bed.
but candle actually equal like a light bulb? I mean, it seems like
It's a
a
candle.
candle.
A candle traveling that far. That's what it is.
Yeah. No, I think
Great.
this is good though. I think
Yeah.
it's a good. And so one other thought I have is that, you know, we have the water incentives that we've done and, you know, and that's, you know, you could argue that that's, you know, water's a huge, big thing, but this is a similar kind of thing. You know, it's maybe not quite as tangible, but it's you know, a lot of people would argue that it's a similar type of thing of how we drive those incentives, and we've got the $2,000, you know, I think I took advantage of it last year with my landscaping and, you know, so anyway, that is there some sort of program that's in that realm that's, I don't know.
Yeah, like the idea of incentive based, it may allow us to increase our floor a little bit. It was like more broadly without being too prescriptive broadly, you know, so we can potentially have more kind of design or application specific design standards built in, so we can kind of improve as we go, more situationally representative than, you know, a thou shall kind of edict. So just curious what you guys may come across as you see other ordinances and regs out there. And so, yeah, you too, John, from what you've encountered out there. Don't need a recitation right now, but just as this kind of a nugget there.
I'd just like to add Garfield Clean Energy does have rebates for LED lighting, at least for commercial properties. So if they're upgrading, if it's a more energy efficient option, right? If they're going from high pressure sodium or whatever to.
They used to give out light bulbs and stuff. Do they still do that?
that I don't know, but they operate, you know, the city's
Yep.
rebate
Right.
program, so.
It's pretty good.
Thank you.
Muy bien.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emery. Okay. Now we're on to commissioner comments. We'll start. Commissioner Guy,
I don't have anything.
you don't have anything?
Just say thanks to Commissioner Cyprian.
Oh.
6 years of service.
It was so different back then. Yeah.
Was that back in the 1800s?
Yeah.
When you actually just had a
It was
candle.
before COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
When we had to see everything twice, remember?
Before that.
Well, you've done a heck of a job.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you
really
very
have.
much. I mean,
Take
you-
everyone up here.
well, but you bring us, you know, a good energy
Yep.
and a specific focus.
Absolutely.
In a good, no, it's a good
It's a
thing.
good
thing.
Thank you very much.
Very
Yeah.
detailed.
Been an honor.
Yeah,
Been a good time.
absolutely.
Okay, I have
Beautiful
something
work over
other, I'm gonna ask a question and it's nothing you can give me an answer on right now. And it's not a simple matter, but that space by Walmart that everybody is always, I know some of it's like owned privately, I think there's BLM jurisdiction, where there's all the unhoused folks. Could the city ever develop that into mountain bike trails?
What?
BUC construction owned them.
Into
You know,
what?
there was, RMBL took a look at it and
Yeah.
it just really wasn't terrain that they wanted to do anything with. There was some discussion around hiking trails back there.
Yeah.
I think the biggest concern from the city standpoint is that they already own a lot of property that they can't maintain currently.
Got
And
it.
so acquiring additional property and adding that to a long list of things that they're trying to maintain was just kind of more of a lift than they wanted to take on, has historically been kind of where council's been at. I mean,
Okay.
it comes up every 2 years, every time we get a new council, so I'm sure we'll be talking about it sometime in the next year again. I mean, seriously, because, you know, it is an ongoing problem in the community, obviously.
Yeah.
So I imagine it will come up again, but that was, we really, when Shelley Kaup was on council, we really dug into that issue and looked at a lot of different things. And that was kind of the outgrowth, is that hiking trails are probably appropriate, but wasn't really something that looked developable for like mountain bike trails necessarily.
But just get that machine in there, Joy. I can see it downhill right there.
Yeah.
I totally.
That's not,
They're little e-bikes.
engineering and money can do anything.
I know. I have a friend that's,
Downhill track.
I have, my good friend developed a bunch of the trails out at the Hogback, so I'm always like, come do
The
it.
Ben? Base?
No.
Oh.
Aaron Madix.
Anything else?
And I just echo again, it's been such an honor
It's
serving
been
with you.
fun.
Yeah,
Thanks for
so
joining me.
good. I'm gonna miss you.
I don't have anything. Other than, I'll throw one thing out. I think we should, for those that are interested, we should go have a drink. If Mrs. Sipperly's,
Yeah,
Ms. Sipperly's up for it, or.
I would, as
don't
long
know
as I
if
can
it's-
grab some Chinese food and put it in the car. Oh, yeah, well, I'm gonna take some time and continue with a lot of other volunteer projects that I'm currently working on. Still on the Preservation Commission, so I know I'm kind of coming up on the end of that term too. See what happens with that. But I have got a lot of other historic things that I'm excited to work on. We did some presentations for the museum last week and presentations for the botanical gardens that I'm working on now, which you guys might eventually see. So enough about that. But it's been a pleasure to serve with you all and including all the staff and all the commissioners here. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time and yeah, coaching me early on and yeah, it's been nice sitting alongside you. So thank you.
Yeah, it's
Appreciate
been
it.
good. No, people took me under my wing. I had no training at all. They just like threw me in here. There wasn't even like, I didn't know what a DS was, you know. Yeah, after that, there's been a little bit more training for a new commissioner, so that is good.
Thanks.
Yeah, you've been a pleasure. I'm gonna miss you, sitting up here. I can't wait to see the greenhouse though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks really rad. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, I guess that's it for us. So Trent?
Carolyn, thank you very much. It was nice that you were still here when I came back.
Yeah.
Left, and it's great to have a familiar
Done it for
face.
years.
No, to you all, this is a huge service that you provide to the community. So thank you for that. And your service on HPC is still mandatory. So keep that up. Next
They
month.
don't get gym passes though, huh?
Oh, no. No gym passes for them. Because I don't, no, never mind. Next month, we have a couple big applications coming. We've had a little bit of a lull here. We also anticipate maybe having a work session regarding landscaping. That's forthcoming, some standards mandated from the state that we need to incorporate into our code, but then others that we're trying to get some clarification on. We'll see. We'll probably put that last on the agenda so that, if you want to maybe not address that in the evening after 2 other land use hearings, that may take some time, that we could kick it, punt it to another month. But so just anticipate those, one that may draw a lot of attention. So just giving you a warning now.
You can't give us any hints?
It'd be a packed room.
Yeah, it's going to be for development of a new building downtown. So mixed use building.
Tell you.
8th Street.
Okay, me and
That's it.
Like what?
No, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there.
What's my line?
We'll leave it there.
Stop.
I'll be looking in the newspaper.
But yeah, thank you all.